What's up, everybody? I'm Adam. That's Steven. There's Tate. Sean Ellenby is in Ireland temporarily. I'm pretty sure I saw on Instagram, I'm pretty sure he already is like 3 pints of Guinness deep. He must have gone straight from the airport to the pub. So it's the three of us. It's been a hot minute. We've been a little busy the last month. It's been a little bit of madness in March and recovery in April. So what's up, fellas? What's good? Long time no talk. Steven, how are you? I love that jacket.
Thanks, Amazon Basics. Yeah. Today I was like, is March Madness over? And I think today was the first day that I'm like, I think it's starting to slow down.
It's March Madness, but it starts in February and it doesn't end until like end of April. So maybe we need to rename it.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about it. We're like, we're going to be so neck deep in stuff, but after it, we want to spend time on the podcast breaking down different pieces of it because there were so many intricacies and things happening and hot moments, and it was just wild. And so I think over the next couple of weeks, we're going to bring some guests from Campus Inc. What's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like across the business, this is like every department or division's like opus, right? Like you see Sean Ellenby's like the Mad Men. I feel like it's, an Always Sunny meme when he's like building the bracket and, doing all of these like hot market if-when scenarios. We've got our creative team that's running insane, our operations and production team, just queuing stuff up night of, morning of. So yeah, I want to bring in a bunch of different members of our business and just hear from their perspective what it's like to go through March Madness at Campus Inc. And Tate, this was your first go around of March Madness here at Campus Inc. How was it?
It was. I mean, I got lucky because we'll get into it, but having both Purdue and UConn, two of our favorite schools, make it all the way to the championship. So the fun got to last quite a while. But for me, it was the perfect form of chaos, and that like I was getting to watch. Last year when I was at Kansas, I was watching one team, and I didn't care about the other 67. I couldn't have cared less what happened to them. Where now it seemed like every game I turned on, I had a rooting interest in just about everything. And the toughest games were the ones where it'd be two of our schools, and I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to flip a coin on this one. It doesn't matter. And if it happened to be a game where we didn't have either school, I was like, I don't care. I'm not watching this.
Yeah.
I'm taking an hour off.
Yeah, zero interest in that. But what was fun for me was getting to watch all those games. And then, obviously we're trying to make stuff happen quick. So it was texting with coaches, ops directors, collective directors, real time, being like, hey, this will be ready in an hour as I'm watching the buzzer beating shot go in. So the perfect
Tate, you saw the chaos from an arm's length distance last year. Campus Inc. We weren't doing anything with Kansas yet. Hopefully soon. But now, what was the biggest surprise to you? Being on the outside, like, okay, if you're Ben Chase right now, hey Ben, you're one of our 10 listeners.
Hey Ben, see you today.
What were your thoughts from the outside looking in? And now, what has Ben really? What are the deep secrets of what actually goes on or surprises?
I did not realize just how much went into making a t-shirt. To simplify it like in one sentence as I could, and what I mean by that is you see it from an arm's length. Like I always knew like, man, those guys are doing some really cool stuff. They're like making things happen quick. Cool. I have no idea how the actual merchandising industry works, how the apparel industry works, but now getting into it now on this side, you see it go from an idea all the way to a finished product, and how many people have to approve something, sign off on something, submit things, to where now when I saw how lack of a better word, how complicated it can be, to like organize that from the inside. Doing it for one is hard. For us being able to do it for 100 different drops throughout the term, I was like, now I look back and I'm like, Jesus, I don't know how we did it, but that's what we'll get people on the next couple of weeks to talk about and how they made it happen.
I would love to. Can you tell us? Okay, you're 1 year. You're not a year in yet.
No.
We're getting
6
there.
months.
That's why we get to grill you for a bit. Can you walk us through what you perceive as the anatomy of a shirt, like from idea to all
Hot
the
seat.
different steps? We'll see if you read all the SOPs in your training and onboarding. But I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, you're still learning every day, right? Like every single day you're learning.
Same.
But if you were teaching this to someone else, walk us through all the different steps just as you're riffing so that listeners can kind of try to even fathom what you're talking about.
Forgot to tell you, Tate, this was going to be your 6-month performance review, so I'll be taking notes here.
If anybody out there is thinking of getting in the industry, I'm probably going to dissuade them after I poorly describe this.
You do great.
An idea. You have to have an idea and a moment that happens. Check one. And then you have a really great designer that can draw something and make a really cool design happen. And then you let them work their magic, and you maybe glance over the shoulder and be like, that looks really cool. And then they put it into a pretty sick software that puts on a mock of a t-shirt or a hoodie. And then that's when I get to step in sometimes and take the fun part of sending that to a licensing director or send that to an NIL director. And then it gets approved. And then we have the lovely account manager for that school that works with the social team, and Paige makes a sick logo and graphic for it, and then ta-da, bam, live, and then athletes get paid.
It's just a
lot of magic that happens, and it's all predicated on having a great designer and having a great moment.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Adam. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I mean, that's
pretty good.
That's like there's a lot of steps there and a lot of people that you mentioned, right? And I follow, there's this guy on Instagram who used to run all the marketing for Nike, and he talks about, like, to market something really well, you have to have a hero. Yeah. Yep. He's a great,
what's his name?
Great follow, Jordan Rogers. Great follow on Instagram. He's no longer at Nike anymore, but he builds content around, like, sports marketing and kind of dives into some of the nitty gritty of how stuff comes to be. And he always talks about, like, you have to have a hero, you have to have a moment, you have to have a medium, and then you have to have something else. I can't remember what the fourth one is. That's why but that's really what we kind of work on is, we know who our heroes are the athletes. We know what the moments are. It's what they do on the court. We know what the medium is. It's apparel and really cool design. But to get that actually out to market, you mentioned this, Tate, it's like licensing, it's athlete approval. And then there's this whole, like, infrastructure of our business that has to take this idea, put it on a physical good, and get it to a customer at the right address at the right time, while they're still excited about the moment. And it's that piece that the magic really happens.
Yeah. I think what's also interesting is you're threading the needle. So, like, Eric is on licensing, right? You're probably talking to the NIL director. We're also trying to get in touch with the student athlete. They also have a tight schedule where we, don't want to be blowing them up, but at the same time, we kind of need them to work their magic too. And so there's this, like, nice little dance that you guys were doing, and it was really cool to watch because I'd see, like, Eric's like, I'm on it, licensing's in touch, like, Sean at Purdue's approved this. And then I'd get a text and, like, okay, Zach's, team's approved. Okay, is social ready to go? Boom. Okay, social, is everything skewed and cataloged? Have we ran a test print? Okay, boom, boom, boom. And it kind of felt like every night was mission control. Like, it was like little NASA, little space launches, like, every single night. And then you kind of blast these things up. And then it's up to our ops team to handle all the financing and the payouts very, very quickly. And then it's up to our production team to print it, ship it, get it out the door very, very quickly. And I think it's like we sell t-shirts, but we sell feelings. Mm-hmm. Like, I like Zach Eady. I, want a piece of this memory. I want it now. I'm going to make an emotional buy so that I feel closer to Purdue. And we are there to either enhance that feeling, or if we have a bad experience, we can really take away from it, right? And so it's funny because, like, I have a folder on my desktop of all our copycats. one of the best artists ever out there, Aaron Draplin, who's just an incredible artist. He shared with us a folder of all of his copycats. And like, we have so many copycats out there. They will take our art and just send it overseas and get it done. They'll take our graphics, make it look similar, slap it on there and do it. And, you know, it's funny because like it's flattery, but it's like they're just missing the,
There's the
Adam,
emotional connection there. Yeah.
The zhuzh. What do you, Adam?
Yeah.
What do you say? They're
Yeah, the
missing something.
zhuzh. Yeah, the zhuzh.
The
They're
zhuzh.
missing the magic.
Yeah. And you have to have the right people in place to pull that magic off. And I think that's why we're not really fazed by it anymore. I don't know. What do you guys think when you see the, you know, and I teach in the printing industry. And so I'll see some like different companies try to do some things in that. But like when you see others out there emulating you, how do you feel? Like, yeah, Adam, Tate, how do you feel?
I'll start. Like, it's definitely flattery. I think there's a little bit of me that still has to regulate myself because it's a lot more to us, and what we do is a lot more than just like, hey, put a design on a t-shirt and sell it. Like, really good example is all the bootleg Caitlin Clark stuff that was out there when she was going through the run. Like, we don't. She's in the pros now, like, you know, whatever. We don't sell Caitlin Clark stuff. And even just seeing that, it would like make my blood boil because I'm like, you're missing it. You are part of the problem. And as somebody who cares about this industry and cares about athletes, like, I have to regulate myself a little bit of like, it doesn't matter. It's a big world, whatever. It's fine. We need to focus on our lane. But there's a big piece of that, like, you are cutting out the most important person in this process when you go about it that way, and that makes me sad. But yeah, you just kind of gotta, you know, Michael Phelps meme, like, just focus on the wall in front of you and just keep going. I was talking in a sports management class last week, and they were like, so you guys scaled really quickly. You worked with. You work with 100 schools and 10,000 athletes. Like, how do you do it? And I kind of made a joke. There's this trending audio right now on Instagram and TikTok that's like, don't ask me how I did it. I just did it. It was hard. It's like, there's no secret. Like, we don't have an algorithm or a map or an app, or like, we just care. And we want to see the moment celebrated. And so we do what Tate and you, Steven, just described. Like, we're going to sit in a bar and watch the games. And when Jack Golke, goes insane and upsets Kentucky, we're on the horn. Hey, Jack, this is amazing. Can we help you? We'd love to help you. And then it turns into a really special thing. So I don't know. That's how I deal with kind of the copycats and stuff like that. What do you think, Tate?
I mean, well said. I would just, famous quote is, what, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So that, but also, yeah, you're missing the athlete part. Probably the coolest piece to kind of wrap the whole thing up that I got to see. I got to go to Chicago for a couple days in the midst of all the chaos and the madness, and like seeing everything we did with Duquesne to capitalize on that one day, where watching the game, I remember they were, at one point they got like up 10, up 12 in the second half, and we all just kind of looked around like, hey, they might do this. We better get some stuff ready. And so stuff was getting, and they have an amazing licensing director who in the middle of the game was approving products like, yes, go, this is ready. I remember one.
Shout out Megan.
Yeah, one was with an athlete, and it was, yeah, I'll make sure he sees this in the locker room after the game. And so that allowed us to move really quick, and it kind of all brought the whole thing together. But you don't get that aspect without doing it the right way.
That just, I literally just got chills just remembering that when you were telling that story, Tate. It's just like, I don't think people realize how special it is to have a community fully bought in of like a licensing director who, that like, they don't necessarily work for athletics all the time, but they're so excited about their community and their brand and what they're doing on, a Saturday night. They are logged in saying, yes, I'm on it. I'm with you in lockstep moving forward. And that takes relationship and communication and time. It's really special.
And who doesn't love Eric Rubish?
The mayor. Everybody loves Eric Rubish.
Yeah, it's really, really cool to see you all cook. And I, whatever, in your own, like, I kind of see it from the outside looking in. I obviously get to be on a couple calls here and there, but it's pretty neat to see you all work. And as Sean says it, like, this is just athletics. We're in the background. We're in the backcourt.
Yep.
This is just what we're doing. I guess, when for us, it's more important for us to have a bunch of like special moments. For us are when we see players that we work with wearing each other's stuff, or wearing it on the planes, or wearing it on press conferences. Like, what gives you the butterflies when you see, obviously, like, selling a lot of shirts is awesome, but what gets you excited? What are the little things that you still really like to see?
Well, I remember me and Adam walking around Phoenix. Was really cool getting to see, a ton of people walking around wearing Purdue NIL Store gear or UConn NIL Store gear. I remember
in
a couple
Phoenix,
times
like from West Lafayette and Bristol, Connecticut. You are in Phoenix, and we're walking around and just like NIL UConn NIL Purdue gear is all over. It was crazy. Sorry, Tate.
I remember we started off saying like, yeah, we should try to take a couple pictures of people we see in there, and then it got to the point where it was like, too much. I can't chase down every single person and ask them to take a picture. But that was a really cool piece, was getting to see in the wild, in the real world, how much of it is out there and how much of a staple it is.
Okay,
I think
go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
Just one of the kind of funny moments there was under happy hour and walking back to our car, and right like downtown, a car drives by us. It's probably like 10:30 at night, and I think the guy driving the car is wearing a Zach Edey Purdue hockey jersey.
Yep.
And we're like, wait, get back here. So we're like, it's just those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, wait, that's our shirt in Phoenix. That's awesome.
And for me, being very athlete focused, getting to see that and being like, every one of those is, dollars in that athlete's pocket, which I think is pretty sick, seeing that out in the wild.
Yeah. What was really cool is guys on the team were texting me, I text with like Lance Jones and, Luke Goody and some of the guys that we've worked with for a minute. And they're like, hey, can you send a box to our hotel so we can mess around and wear this more?
Dude.
Like, they were just having fun. They were literally, it was really cool to see some of these schools just having fun. I'm curious, I was not in Phoenix. What was the NIL climate there? Was there NIL in the shops, like in venue, any sorting offerings? I know we've done some stuff with Big Ten in the past. Did you guys see anything on the wall?
I didn't see a ton like in venue. There was stuff in the team hotels. So a lot of times they'll set up like little merch shops, like in the lobbies where the team is staying, or where a lot of the fans are, booked for that particular team. So there's a good like affinity there. I didn't see a ton outside of there other than what people were wearing. This one of those events I talked about, how Sean says, look, we're kind of in the background. We're supporting in the moments as they happen. This was kind of that like pinnacle moment where it was like, okay, this is the last game of the season, two hegemons like matched up against each other. So it really was like a true background moment. But I think one of the most fun kind of like, hey, NIL is still on people's minds that I experienced was, we were at an event where with a lot of administrators and licensing directors, and this was right after the UConn game, and so found out it was going to be Purdue and UConn, and I had ran into Kyle Muncy, licensing director at UConn, and we were just kind of chatting. We were like, man, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be a ton of fun. And I was like, hey, can we do a combo shirt? Because I mean, the country deserves to see Zach Edey and Donovan Clingan go after it. Like, that is what we all deserved. And we have it. Can we do a combo shirt and like co-license it with Purdue and just like do this massive showdown in the Southwest? And he's like, yeah, sure, go for it. So like he was thinking too, like, yes, this is a great moment where we have the two big men in the country going after it. Let's let them celebrate and give the fans what they want. So it's still kind of like in their minds of, hey, how can we push this forward and do some fun stuff, which I had to give Eric some crap because he's like, I don't think they'll ever go for it. Kyle just said go for it. So
if you don't ask, you might not, you might lose your opportunity for a yes. So I think that's super cool. I think it's also really cool that, Sean Ward on the Purdue side, Kyle Muncie on the UConn side, like agents also coming together and being like, yeah, this is dope, right? There's a 1+1 is 3 here. And that was pretty cool to see, two powerhouse organizations and powerhouse administrators also thinking the same way. I'm curious. I read something in one of the forums. It was some fans of a school that were not too happy about the transfer portal. Not going to name any names, but we're just seeing teams get wiped, literally. And one of them in there said, I'm not going to buy NIL gear anymore, or NIL, like, we pay them all this money and they don't stay, or they want to leave, or they want to do this stuff. And I'm curious what you think when I say that comment of like, what am I going to do with my jersey now that they transferred, right? What do you feel and think? What are your initial reactions?
I think on that one. It's a tough one because I think people are getting used to this being more like the pros. Like this is not amateur athletics anymore, and it hasn't been for 50, 60 plus years. But those are still players that came to your school, that put on that jersey, that went out there and fought for your school, and ultimately brought them a lot of attention and revenue, and were the front porch of the university. And by and large, the transfer portal gets a lot of heat and a lot of flack, but it's not bad for the industry. It's not bad for the game. NIL in general is nothing but good for the game because it allows better players to stick around longer, and we get to see more of them in the college game. And I think too often people wrap NIL and the transfer portal together, and it's like, those are two different, beasts over there. Don't wrap them together.
Adam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think that's probably a little bit of like a vocal minority, right? And brand connection is fans connecting directly through the athlete as opposed. And I think there's still a little bit of, I think college probably has a brand affinity than the pros do right now. But yeah, I don't put a lot of credence in that as like, yes, the transfer portal exists. As much as you may be frustrated that one of your guys is transferring, you're going to benefit from the transfer portal as well. And somebody else is going to transfer in and be your next hero. And you see these guys at NBA games that are like standing up and like waving down LeBron, trying to get his attention, and they're picking up his Lakers jersey, and then they're picking up his Heat jersey, and then they're picking up his Cavs jersey, and then they're picking up. It's like, dude, you may be frustrated. I'm sorry that you're frustrated, but most people are stoked that, a legend came and balled out at their university. And if he moved on, he moved on. But I don't put that doesn't concern me too much.
So I read that and I thought it was funny. And then I looked in our inbox and kind of our support tickets. We were getting customers saying, hey, is it too late to buy this player's thing before they leave?
Yep.
Like, hey, are you guys going to remove this from the store? I really want to go grab one.
Yeah.
And so the exact polar opposite. And, when I go to a Cubs game, I wear my Anthony Rizzo jersey and my Chris Bryant jersey, right? And so if the Cubs get hot this year, maybe I'll grab something else, right? But like you kind of said, it's a collectible, right? Totally. I was talking to Chad at trading cards, and I said, is the transfer portal killing you guys? Is it okay? Like, how is it? And he's like, it's more rare now, right? There's less of them out there. And so I think that's something cool. I was just curious to your feedback and how you felt about it.
I would say that, and on the flip side too, I mean, now you get to be on the flip side of it, where if you're St. Louis, if you're a St. Louis basketball fan, now you get to go get immediately a Robbie Avila St. Louis jersey, right? Like you get to go the second those guys come in, it's, oh great, that's my new collectible. Now it's my next one. So it also has the flip effect.
I really want to know who here has kept their Jay Cutler Denver's Broncos jersey. Like, give me one of those. That's a classic.
100%. 100%.
Okay. Question. I want to talk a couple more things on Phoenix and Final Four. Can you guys run down what happened at Purdue with Boilermaker Alliance and the collective and the Final Four shirts, and just what the two of you were doing in the last week of the Final Four? Because that was bananas, and I think it's kind of nuts.
Yeah. So one thing that we always try to do, and mission and always trying to involve the athletes, is we work really closely with collectives. Shameless plug: if you're a collective, you want to work with us, hit us up. But we were working with Dave Neff and Boilermaker Alliance to bring some really cool things to market that were still going to help the athletes, even if they weren't, a Zach Edey hockey jersey or anything like that. And so with hot market partners, designing some really stellar like Final Four apparel. We had some like desert themed stuff and really just trying to lean into what you were talking about, Steve, in that moment. And combine forces with Boilermaker Alliance, who, exists to help support student athletes, all student athletes, activate for student athletes, be resources to them. And so, we were able to partner with them and actually earn them a pretty good amount of money. We had a good retrospective with him, just yesterday, and it was kind of fun to hear from his perspective. You were kind of tossing up some softballs to him, Stephen. Like, look, I'm not going to tell you. You tell me. Like, how do you think it went? And it was fun to hear them say, like, we had no idea it was going to be like this. Your team, your marketing team is going insane. The stuff that you're pushing out and promoting, like, we feel like we don't even have to do that because your stuff is so good. The activations, the customer connections. It was fun to hear that feedback from him.
We got introduced to him like 3 weeks prior.
Yeah.
When did we start working with him, Tate? It was like March 15th or something like that.
Yeah, it was like the week of Selection Sunday.
And I was like, we got to go now. The train is leaving the station. And there were some other ideas like, well, what about this? I was like, Dave, trust me. Yeah. I was like, the train's leaving the station. We got to do this. Tate's hitting him up. And then he gave us a shot, which was awesome. In the tens of thousands, like it was pretty insane. And I think what's cool there is like a new relationship's formed, trust is formed. And now our calls are, what else can we do? What's next? And how do we reinvent? And how do we do stuff together? Right. And I thought that was super, super cool. The other part about the collectives is we're still figuring it out, but we're trying to be really tasteful about it. Mm-hmm. Right. Collectives are here to stay for the near future. There's always going to be some fundraising arm. So we're not going to put all our eggs in. We're not going to put all our eggs in every basket, but we're willing to dabble and test. We just partnered with Rally Republic Pickleball. And so if you buy a pickleball paddle through the NIL store, money goes back to the collective, right? And so our thought process is, how do we keep it all into licensed branded stuff? How do we support other brands in the industry? How do we help the collectives out? And we're open to suggestions, but we're starting to see some things work. And it's been kind of changes every day. So,
and it was a good lesson learned too. Like a lot of things went right, obviously. And so like, it's like you said, Stephen, you can't do everything. So pick a couple tasteful things, help customers support the things that they want to support, and don't worry about trying to be all things to all people and doing everything. So,
cool.
Yeah.
All right. We have 8 minutes. I want to do rapid fire. I want to spend 2 to 3 minutes on these topics each. I'm going to throw them out there and we're going to go. You guys ready?
Ready.
All right. House versus NCAA. Professor Cook. 1 minute, go.
Yeah, this is, Tate, we've been talking about this. This is probably the keystone case right now. It has a lot to do with whether or not the NCAA will be responsible for back pay for student athletes from the previous 4 years from when NIL became legal and shifted, which could put them on the hook for upwards of dollars. That will change the model going forward forever and significantly based on finances and what schools are required to pay to athletes.
So how do you come up with $5 billion if you don't have it to back pay?
That's a great question. This is what a lot of administrators are trying to figure out. It won't, it's not going to be like, hey, this passed. Okay, you owe a check. You have to write it today. It will be, in installments over probably the next 8 to 10 years or so. One of the interesting things, there's a great article on Yahoo that talks about there's a lot of stipulations that go into this. It's not, when you settle outside of court, it's not like, hey, here's the 1 or 2 things that are involved in this case. There's like 15 things in terms of, the NCAA is going to get immunity from being sued again over the next decade because every time they get sued for antitrust, they lose. So there's a lot of things that go into the NCAA versus House case. But the biggest takeaway is it will require the athlete or the schools on some level to pay the athletes directly, which will effectively be 100% the death of the amateurism model. Now, what happens at Power 5 schools versus Group of 5 schools, what happens at FBS schools versus FCS schools, all remains to be seen. But what we're realizing and figuring out finally, it's not rocket science, but when you look at those autonomous 4 or Power 4 conferences and schools, they are different than every other school. And so that's what this case is trying to start to figure out.
I feel like NCAA is in like UFC 300 and they're playing in every match.
Yeah, 100%. Tate, what's your take on House versus NCAA?
A couple. As a guy who played in college during those years, I am ready to receive my.
I will take my portion of the billion, please.
I want my $12.
Yeah, but I will take whatever it is. Maybe it gets me a bowl of Chipotle. We'll see. But you hit it on the head. It opens the door for revenue sharing, and this is something schools have been preparing for years. It's been in the news a lot this week. It's not something that schools are like, oh my gosh, who would have ever thought? They've been preparing financially, budget wise, for years for this. But as a guy who worked at a Power 4 school as administrator and someone who played at a mid-major as a student athlete, that gap only continues to drastically shift and grow, and it's going to require some very innovative thinking to sustain this model.
When is there a decision on this?
Probably, I don't know, probably not within the next 12 months, and then whether or not the NCAA decides to appeal. The interesting thing about appeals, though, is if the NCAA appeals and then loses, their penalties triple. So it goes from whatever it is, 1.5 billion up to like 4 billion. But most likely they will end up settling this out of court and not let this actually go to a trial.
My prediction is, after talking to enough people, I was on, just hammering the phones on this for the last little bit. I think we're on the clock. This is the draft, on the clock for direct revenue share in the year 2025 is my prediction.
Got it. So if you can loan the NCAA $1.5 to $5 billion, acquire within. Otherwise, hang tight. AO News, athletes.org did some cool things in the last couple of weeks. Tate, kick us off. But we'll let Tate go first, and then Adam.
Yeah, first I can talk about it now. I got to be a part of a really cool conversation in Phoenix, hosted by AO, around the future of collegiate athletics, and it was a mixture of leaders in the industry from different spaces, from the media, from conferences, ADs, NCAA, and then some really great student athletes, hosted by AO. It was a closed door, no media, no camera conversation, just talking about, hey, we've got some of the brightest minds in the room here. How are we viewing this from each other's vantage point? It was a discussion on how we can move this forward. So I know more of those will be coming, but that was a great event that AO hosted, doing it again at NACDA in June. But they made huge strides. Athletes.org, signed up their first team-wide membership deal with UAB. I know they got to go down and meet with the UAB football team. Head coach Trent Dilfer definitely helps with this, being an NFL guy who's used to the NFLPA model, who's been a player in it. they were able to sit down, talk with their team, talk with their players about, hey, this is what Athletes.org is trying to do in this new era of college athletics and represent you guys. Let you guys have a voice, a seat at the table, to have some say in whatever these next round of changes are. So big day for them. I know they're up over 2,000 members now, but I know talking with their team, getting a whole team like that to buy in is special. It's the first time it's happened, and that really creates a strong case study for if you have a coach that buys in and believes in, hey, my athletes should have a seat at the table and they should be a part of these changes. We have a group of trusted leaders like AO has. This is where this can go.
All right, Adam, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to
Adam,
the house.
Did you miss the invite?
Yeah, it was a good, similar to the House versus NCAA case, kind of shaping what the future of the collegiate model is. AO is getting to a place where if one of the things that House versus NCAA and how this settles results in the schools basically purchasing NIL rights for all their athletes, we're just back in the same position where nobody is actually advocating for the athletes against how the schools use those purchased rights. Being able to get an entire team signed up and continue to prove out their model, it's just another kind of flag in the sand. We're moving towards what you see in pro sports of a representation agency that will function as a union, being able to negotiate against a governing body on behalf of its talent, on behalf of its members.
Now that doesn't, and so first of all, this is just the first step, right?
Totally.
Like athletes.org still has to actually, getting them convinced to join is one, which is a big feat. And so I congratulate them for that. And I think Coach said he was like trying to convince Deion Sanders, like, hey, let's go get Colorado, let's start a little wave. But the work doesn't even start yet. Like that's just half the battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's the actual contract negotiation and, actually figuring out the mechanics of deals and stuff like that. Does this exclude an athlete from doing one-to-one deals on a, Papa John's commercial or something?
No. It doesn't. Athletes have their ability to, have their NIL rights, it's no different than the NFLPA. If you're an NFL player, you don't have to work through the NFLPA for a brand deal.
Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Can't buy his stuff right now. No, I was just curious of how are the exclusions going to work, right? And the sweetener's also going to work, right? And you learned about the EA Sports deal, and that was a blanket, whatever, $500-600, but the top 5% of athletes still got a little extra gravy, right?
Well, and the interesting
that's
thing,
not going to go away.
You're talking about exclusions, and this is why an organization like AO is trying to get members to opt in, because if the NCAA or member schools do end up purchasing rights, the NIL rights of their athletes, this is why this is important, is you have to have somebody who is advocating for the athletes themselves and knows, hey, a governing body is going to want exclusive rights to your channel, and they're not going to ask permission for it. They're going to pay the least amount of money they possibly can for it, and then squeeze the most out of it on the other end. That's just how it works.
And there was just a case with Virginia now, right? And so at Virginia, schools can pay directly to athletes, which means they can pay them for being on billboards and commercials, and that's kind of the first step of owning their rights.
I think that goes in July 1, and the NCAA is still saying, hey, you voluntarily agreed to be a member of this organization. We expect you to abide by NCAA rules. So it's a matter of them versus state law.
But then the whole Tennessee thing is that the NCAA can enforce. Enforce. I love politics. And here our presidents trying to figure out, our old presidents got hush money deals going. So it's like, wow, this is America. Is that what Mr. Gambino says? Influencer, all right, getting the RFP for NCAA contracts and Teamworks. So first of all, congratulations to Influencer and Teamworks. Can you guys break that down? What's going on there?
Yeah. So part of kind of looking towards this next model is having essentially a clearinghouse, some sort of accountability, some sort of checks and balances for what contracts are being put in front of student athletes. You hear a lot about Charlie Baker a couple months ago talking about, oh, we need a blanket contract. Well, you're not really going to be able to get a blanket contract, but what he's talking about is blanket terms. And if you're going to put, stipulations or things like that in place, you have to have somebody who's actually going to like monitor that and keep people accountable to that, as well as a database of agents and brands that work with college athletes. And so it's really just trying to bring a lot of what happens currently into basically a centralized location that can be controlled a little bit. And, I think when we hear about control, we kind of bristle and say it's a bad idea. But the reality is it's just accountability to make sure that, are you a reputable brand? Are you going to pay the athletes what you say you're going to pay them? Does your contract meet the bare minimum requirements that, would hold up to state law and hold up to federal law? And are they not predatory? Very similar to how, pro leagues have clearinghouses of agents that are able to represent their athletes. It's the same kind of idea. So it's a big deal. It's great for teamworks. And I think will bring a lot of stability to brands and contracts in the industry. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Tate.
No, I think also one thing this does is, as a guy, I played at a mid-major, but also, we work really closely with a ton of mid-majors, seeing how they operate versus some Power 4. Having a centralized place like this really can help them because they don't have NIL directors, NIL staff on campuses in their athletic departments to handle a lot of the tasks that are currently a part of this, where now they get to have for the first time a starting point of hey, you're a brand, you want to work with us, whoever, go there. That can start the funnel. Right now that doesn't really exist at a lot of places, so it's left either to die on the vine or get handled by a NIL by committee, which can make it really hard on a lot of schools. So I think this actually opens up the doors and opportunities to a lot of schools.
Sweet. Thank you. That was super informative, and I appreciate your guys' wisdom, and I think a lot of people do too. So thank you for giving it. Guys, I think that's the pod.
That's the pod. Lots of industry news, lots of changes, lots of fun to recap. We got some more fun coming down the pipeline for you. We'll bring some other members of our business here to talk the ins and outs of what it takes to pull off madness. I'm Adam. That's Steven. There's Tate. This is another episode of the NIL Show. We will catch you guys next time.